First contact in fire. Naira adjusted the medical scanner strapped to her forearm, its soft blue glow illuminating her scaled skin as she moved through the military hospital's corridors. The endless stream of wounded soldiers from the frontier brought daily reminders of the swarming's brutality. Her people, the Lasari, were losing this war, despite their advanced technology and tactical prowess. Another transport incoming, her assistant Trell announced, his antenna twitching with anxiety. They're saying it's bad. Really bad. Naira's jaw tightened as she prepared her trauma kit. The stories from the frontier grew worse with each passing cycle. The swarming, a hive mind species that consumed everything in its path, had already taken 3 colonial systems. Their biological weapons reduced proud warriors to hollow shells. How many, she asked, already moving toward the landing pad. 23 survivors. Out of a garrison of 300. Naira's steps faltered for just a moment. 300 of their best warriors, reduced to almost nothing. She forced herself forward as the transport's engines whined outside. The Lasari were proud warriors, descendants of apex predators who had evolved into a spacefaring civilization. But against the swarming, pride meant nothing. The transport's doors hissed open, releasing the acrid smell of burned flesh and terror. Naira moved efficiently between the wounded, her scanner identifying the most critical cases. Most bore the characteristic signs of swarming weapons, tissue decay, neural damage, genetic corruption. They came from nowhere, one soldier muttered as she treated him. Billions of them. We fought so hard. Save your strength, Naira told him, administering a stabilizing agent. But he grabbed her arm, his eyes wild. They saved us, he whispered. The ghosts. The human warriors. Naira's expression hardened. You're delirious. Humans are myths. Stories to frighten children. The soldier laughed, a broken sound. That's what I thought too. Until I saw them fight. Naira pulled away, moving to the next patient. She had heard the legends since childhood, tales of human warriors who fought with impossible skill and savagery. But they were just that, legends. Humans had vanished from the galaxy centuries ago, if they had ever existed at all. The emergency ward filled quickly as more wounded arrived. Naira worked tirelessly, her hands steady as she fought to save those she could. But the stories continued, whispered from bed to bed. Stories of shadow warriors appearing from nowhere, fighting with weapons that seemed to ignore swarming armor, moving with impossible speed and coordination. Commander on deck. The announcement cut through the chaos. Naira looked up to see Commander Voss stride into the ward, his cybernetic eye glowing as he surveyed the wounded. His presence here meant something significant had happened. The rumors are true, he announced without preamble. We have confirmed contact with human forces. They've requested a meeting. The ward fell silent. Naira's scanner slipped from suddenly numb fingers. That's impossible, she said. Humans are real, Voss cut her off. And they're offering to help us fight the swarming. He turned to Naira. They specifically requested our best combat medic. Congratulations, Doctor. You're about to make history. Naira wanted to protest, to argue that this was madness. But as she looked around at the wounded, at what remained of their proud warriors, she realized they had no choice. If humans were real, if they truly possessed even a fraction of the power the legends claimed, the Lasari needed them. When do we leave? She asked. Now, Voss replied. The swarming is moving faster than we predicted. We've lost contact with the Helios colony. Helios. Naira's home. Her family. Everything she had left in the galaxy. I'll get my kit, she said, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her throat. As she gathered her supplies, Naira couldn't shake the feeling that her entire world was about to change. She had spent her life treating the wounds of war, believing she understood its nature. But if the humans were real, if the legends were true, she was about to learn what war truly meant. She just hoped they weren't too late. The Siege of Outpost Delta. The transport ship cut through the darkness of space, its engines humming with barely contained power. Naira stood at the viewport, watching stars blur past as they traveled toward the coordinates the humans had provided. Commander Voss stood beside her, his cybernetic eye constantly scanning data streams. What do we actually know about them? Naira asked, breaking the tense silence. Less than we thought, Voss admitted. The historical records speak of a species that evolved on a death world, forced to adapt to constant threats. They developed technology differently than we did, focusing on stealth and efficiency rather than raw power. And then they vanished, Naira said. Why? Before Voss could answer, the ship's sensors blared a warning. Multiple contacts appeared on the tactical display, swarming vessels, moving fast. They found us, the pilot announced, her voice tight with fear. Evasive maneuvers, Voss ordered, but Naira knew it was hopeless. The swarming ships were faster, more numerous. They would be overtaken in minutes. Then something impossible happened. The void of space itself seemed to ripple, and 3 ships appeared from nowhere. They were unlike anything Naira had ever seen, sleek, dark vessels that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. No energy signatures, no engine flares, just silent hunters in the dark. Human vessels, Voss breathed, his cybernetic eye struggling to track them. The battle that followed defied everything Naira thought she knew about space combat. The human ships moved like predators, striking from impossible angles, their weapons bypassing swarming shields as if they didn't exist. Within moments, the pursuing fleet was reduced to drifting debris. By the first light, Naira whispered. The legends hadn't done them justice. Their ship docked at what appeared to be an abandoned mining facility on a small asteroid. But as they disembarked, Naira realized the facility was far from abandoned. Hidden turrets tracked their movement, and sensors she couldn't even see monitored their every breath. A figure stepped out of the shadows, tall, encased in matte black armor that seemed to shift and change like liquid night. The helmet retracted, revealing a face that was both alien and eerily familiar. Dark eyes, weathered skin, and a network of scars that told stories of countless battles. Commander Voss, Dr. Naira, the human said, her voice carrying an accent Naira's translator struggled with. I'm Captain River Blackwood. Welcome to Outpost Delta. Before anyone could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. Blackwood's helmet snapped back into place. The swarming found us faster than expected, she said, already moving. Hope you're ready for a fight. The next hours were chaos. The swarming attacked in waves, their biomechanical horrors trying to breach the station's defenses. But the humans fought like nothing Naira had ever seen. They moved in perfect coordination, their weapons and tactics making mockery of the swarming superior numbers. Naira worked alongside them, treating wounds and learning their methods. The humans had developed countermeasures to swarming biological weapons, technologies that seemed to border on magic. Their medical techniques were brutal but effective, prioritizing survival over comfort. How do you do it? She asked Blackwood during a brief respite, as she treated a wound that should have been fatal. How do you fight them so effectively? Blackwood checked her weapon's charge before responding. We learned the hard way that traditional warfare doesn't work against hive minds. You can't intimidate them, can't break their morale. So we adapted. We became what they fear most, an enemy they can't predict, can't understand. But the cost? Naira gestured at the scars visible beneath Blackwood's armor. Is necessary, the captain finished. We're not fighting for glory, Doctor. We're fighting for survival. The swarming doesn't stop, doesn't negotiate. Either we become strong enough to defeat them, or everything we know ends. The station shuddered as another wave of attackers struck. Blackwood's helmet sealed again. Time to move. We're evacuating the wounded to our primary base. The swarming's bringing in something big, and we need to be ready. As Naira helped prepare the wounded for transport, she watched the humans work. Their efficiency was beautiful in its own terrible way. Every movement had purpose, every action calculated for maximum effect. They weren't the warriors of legend, they were something else entirely. Something born of necessity and forged in the crucible of endless war. She thought of her home, of Helios colony and her family. The Lasari were proud warriors, but pride wouldn't save them from the swarming. Perhaps it was time to learn a different way of fighting. A human way. The station's sensors detected something massive emerging from hyperspace. Blackwood's voice came over the comms, tight with controlled tension. Everyone to battle stations. The real fight's about to begin. Shadows and steel. The massive shape that emerged from hyperspace made Naira's breath catch in her throat. A swarming hive ship, organic and mechanical parts fused into a nightmarish whole, large enough to swallow Outpost Delta whole. Its surface writhed with countless defense organisms, and its weapons were already charging. Everyone to the inner sanctum, Blackwood ordered through the comms. This is not a drill. As they retreated deeper into the asteroid, Naira witnessed the true extent of human preparation. What had appeared to be a simple mining outpost was actually a labyrinth of tunnels and chambers, each rigged with defenses she could barely comprehend. The station is lost, Commander Voss said, his cybernetic eye analyzing the tactical displays. We need to evacuate. Blackwood's laugh was cold. The station was always meant to be lost, Commander. That's the point. Naira looked up sharply. What do you mean? Instead of answering, Blackwood led them into a command center unlike anything Naira had seen before. The walls were covered in displays showing every angle of the approaching hive ship. Human operators worked at stations that seemed to merge with their bodies, their movements synchronized with inhuman precision. Lieutenant Drake, status report, Blackwood called out. A human with augmented eyes looked up from his station. The hive ship is proceeding exactly as predicted, Captain. They're taking the bait. Excellent. Blackwood turned to Naira and Voss. You're about to witness why humans don't fight fair. The hive ship extended its biological tendrils, latching onto Outpost Delta. Breach organisms began cutting through the outer hull, just as they had done to countless Lasari stations before. But something was different. The station's power core, Naira realized suddenly. It's not just a power core, is it? Blackwood's smile was predatory. The entire station is a weapon, Doctor. Every system, every component, has been carefully designed to look exactly like what the swarming expects to find. They'll breach our defenses, penetrate to the core, and then. The displays showed the hive ship's organisms breaching the final barriers around the station's heart. Blackwood raised her hand, then brought it down sharply. Now. The station exploded, but not in a conventional way. Instead of fire and debris, waves of dark energy pulsed outward. Where they touched the hive ship's biological components, matter simply ceased to exist. The massive vessel writhed, trying to separate from the station, but it was too late. Quantum destabilization field, Drake explained, noting Naira's shocked expression. Attacks the quantum bonds holding organic matter together. Particularly effective against swarming biotech. The hive ship didn't explode so much as unravel, its matter dissolving into nothing as the field spread through its systems. Within minutes, nothing remained but scattered debris and a few mechanical components that had survived the dissolution. That's. Naira struggled to find words. That's not possible. That technology shouldn't exist. Necessity, Blackwood said simply. When your enemy adapts to everything you throw at them, you have to think beyond the possible. Voss stared at the tactical displays, his cybernetic eye recording everything. How many more stations like this do you have? None, Blackwood replied. And tomorrow, we'll have something completely different. The moment we use a weapon, it becomes obsolete. The swarming learns, adapts. So we never use the same trick twice. Naira thought about the implications. The Lasari had spent generations perfecting their weapons and tactics, building on tradition and proven strategies. But against an enemy that evolved constantly, tradition became a weakness. You're not just warriors, she said slowly. You're innovators. Every battle is an experiment, every weapon a prototype. Now you're beginning to understand. Blackwood activated a holographic display showing multiple star systems. But this was just the beginning. The hive ship was a scout. Something much bigger is coming. Red dots appeared across the display, hundreds of them, thousands, all converging on Lasari space. The main swarming fleet, Voss breathed. They're launching a full invasion. Yes. Blackwood's expression was grim. And now you have a choice, Doctor. Your people can keep fighting the old way and die proudly, or you can learn to fight like us. No honor, no glory. Just survival. Naira looked at the displays, at the approaching doom of everything she had ever known. Then she looked at the humans, these shadow warriors who had turned warfare into an art of endless adaptation. Teach me, she said. For the first time, Blackwood's smile reached her eyes. Lesson 1, forget everything you think you know about war. We're going to show you how humans really fight. The heart of warriors. The human training facility hidden beneath the surface of a rogue planet was unlike anything Naira had imagined. For 3 weeks, she had watched and learned as Captain Blackwood and her team demonstrated what real warfare meant. It wasn't about standing and fighting, it was about never being where the enemy expected. Again, Blackwood ordered as Naira picked herself up from the training mat. The medical scanner on her arm was trying to recalibrate after the electromagnetic pulse from her last failed attempt. The swarming will be here in less than 2 days, Naira said, wiping blood from her scaled lip. Shouldn't we be preparing defenses? Lieutenant Drake, monitoring from the observation deck, chuckled. This is how humans prepare, Doctor. We become the weapon. Naira had begun to understand. The humans didn't just fight differently, they thought differently. Every piece of technology they used was designed to be repurposed, every tactic built to be reversed. Nothing was permanent, nothing sacred except survival itself. Your people's greatest weakness, Blackwood said, circling her, is that you think of technology as a tool. We think of it as an extension of ourselves. She gestured to the neural interface at the base of her skull. When I move, my armor moves. When I think, my weapons think. There's no delay, no separation. Naira adjusted her stance, trying to mirror Blackwood's fluid positioning. The experimental combat suit the humans had given her felt alive, responding to her smallest movements. It was terrifying and exhilarating. The swarming adapts to patterns, she recited, remembering her lessons. So we become chaos. Good. Blackwood nodded. Now show me. This time, when Blackwood attacked, Naira didn't try to defend herself. Instead, she let her medical training guide her, understanding anatomy, predicting movement, finding weakness. The combat suit enhanced her natural speed, while the neural interface she'd been fitted with sharpened her reactions. For a brief moment, she saw an opening. Not where Blackwood was, but where she would be. Naira moved without thinking, her augmented reflexes carrying her through a sequence she hadn't known she could perform. Blackwood hit the mat hard, a rare smile crossing her face. Now you're learning. But their training was interrupted by Commander Voss's urgent arrival. They're here early. The swarming fleet just emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Helio system. Naira's heart stopped. But we're not ready. The defenses dash. We're never going to stop them, Blackwood cut her off, already moving toward the command center. That was never the plan. The command center had transformed since Naira had last seen it. Where there had been tactical displays, there were now neural interface pods. Human operators sat in them, their consciousness merged with combat drones and weapon systems scattered throughout the system. The Lasari fleet is engaging the swarming, Voss reported, his cybernetic eye streaming data. They're being overwhelmed. Naira watched in horror as the tactical display showed Lasari ships being torn apart by swarming weapons. Her people were fighting bravely, dying proudly, and accomplishing nothing. Now, Blackwood said quietly, we show them a better way. She turned to Naira. Your medical expertise combined with our combat systems, you've learned enough to make a difference. Are you ready? Naira looked at the neural interface pod waiting for her. 3 weeks ago, she would have called this technology an abomination. Now she understood it was simply a tool, like her medical scanner or her combat suit. The only thing that mattered was how you used it. What's the real plan? She asked. Blackwood's smile was fierce. The swarming adapts to everything they encounter, becoming stronger each time. But they've never encountered a virus designed by a combat medic and weaponized by human warfare specialists. Understanding dawned. You want me to design a biological weapon? No, Blackwood corrected. We want you to design a cure. One that will spread through their hive mind like a virus, breaking their connection to each other. But to do it, you'll have to get closer than anyone has ever gotten to their core consciousness. Naira looked at the display, at her dying people, at her burning home. Then she looked at the humans, these warriors who had turned survival into an art form. How close? She asked. Blackwood's answer was simple, all the way in. Dawn of Alliance. The neural interface pod closed around Naira, connecting her consciousness to the human battle network. Through it, she could feel everything, the dying screams of Lasari ships, the cold purpose of human strike teams, and beneath it all, the vast alien consciousness of the swarming. Neural connection stable, Lieutenant Drake's voice came through, distant yet clear. Doctor, your vital signs are strong. Ready to begin viral deployment on your mark. The biological weapon they had created wasn't really a weapon at all. It was a modification of Lasari healing protocols, combined with human combat algorithms. A cure that would spread through the swarming's hive mind, breaking their connection to each other, giving them back their individuality. If it worked. Remember, Blackwood's voice guided her, the swarming's consciousness works like a biological network. Your medical training is your weapon here. Think of it like treating an infection. Naira focused, using her medical scanner's interface to analyze the swarming's neural patterns. Their hive mind was vast, but it followed familiar biological principles. Where others saw an unstoppable enemy, she began to see symptoms, patterns, weaknesses. I'm beginning the approach, she announced, directing her consciousness toward the nearest hive ship. Through the neural link, she could feel human strike teams moving into position, providing cover and distraction. The swarming noticed her probe immediately. Their collective consciousness turned toward her like a tide of razors, trying to tear apart her digital presence. But the human neural interfaces protected her, adapting and shifting faster than the swarming could track. Multiple hive ships converging on your position, Voss reported. The Lasari fleet is attempting to provide cover fire. Naira pushed deeper into the swarming network, letting her medical training guide her. The hive mind's architecture reminded her of a nervous system, complex, but ultimately governed by predictable rules. She found the pathways she needed, places where her modified healing protocols could take root. Now, she whispered, and released the cure. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the swarming consciousness screamed, not in pain, but in confusion. The cure spread through their neural network like fire through dry grass, breaking connections, restoring individual awareness. "It's working," Drake reported, excitement breaking through his professional demeanor. "The hive ships are losing cohesion. Their attack patterns are breaking down." Through the neural interface, Naira could feel it happening. The vast, unified consciousness of the swarming was fragmenting, each piece becoming something new, something individual. Some fought against it, trying to maintain their connection to the hive. Others embraced their newfound independence, turning on their former allies in confusion and fear. "Swarming fleet is in disarray," Voss announced. "Lasari forces are pressing the advantage." But victory had a price. The neural feedback from billions of minds suddenly breaking apart threatened to overwhelm Naira's consciousness. Her vital signs spiked dangerously as she struggled to disconnect from the network. "Stay with us, Doctor," Blackwood's voice cut through the chaos. "Remember your training. Adapt. Survive." Naira forced herself to focus, using the human neural interfaces to filter the feedback. She could feel her own consciousness beginning to fragment, memories scattering like stars. Then she felt something else, human minds linking with hers through the neural network, supporting her, sharing her burden. Blackwood, Drake, and dozens of others she had trained with, all connecting to help her maintain her sense of self. Together, Blackwood said simply. The feedback subsided. Naira opened her eyes as the neural interface pod retracted. The tactical displays showed the swarming fleet in chaos, individual ships either retreating or surrendering as their crews regained their individual consciousness. "The cure is spreading through their entire network," Drake reported. "It's self-propagating now. The swarming as we knew them will never exist again." Naira stood shakily, supported by Blackwood. Through the command center's viewport, she could see Lasari ships moving to secure the area, working alongside human vessels that no longer hid in shadow. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now," Blackwood said, "we help them. The former swarming will need medical treatment, psychological support. They're individuals again, for the first time in generations. Your people's warriors can protect them. Our shadow tactics can defend them. And your medical knowledge can heal them." Voss stepped forward, his cybernetic eye glowing with new data. "The Lasari High Command is requesting official contact with human forces. They're calling this the greatest victory in our history." "No," Naira corrected, looking at the humans who had taught her a new way of fighting, of healing, of surviving. "This isn't a victory. This is a beginning." Blackwood nodded, a rare full smile crossing her face. "That's the most human thing you've said yet, Doctor." As Naira watched Lasari and human ships working together to secure the sector, she realized something profound. The legends of human warriors hadn't done them justice, not because humans were stronger or fiercer than the stories claimed, but because the stories had missed the point entirely. Humans weren't just warriors. They were survivors, adapters, healers, and teachers. They had taught her that true strength wasn't about standing and fighting, it was about changing, growing, and finding new ways to save lives rather than take them. And now, together, they would build something new. Something that combined Lasari honor with human adaptability, warrior strength with healing wisdom. The future, Naira realized, would be stronger than any legend.